Okay, recording. Give me a second, and I'll get my screen
no,
going.
OBS. It exploded. It told me my video card is actually a sound card.
It
What?
told me that my video card is buttered toast.
Okay. It looks like my buttered toast is,
But how do we know for sure?
Just
Wait.
don't use a metaphor. Just tell us if it's working or not.
But yeah, it's working. We're good.
Okay. The
I
delay
said-
from that response was
I
very
said it was
nerve-wracking.
working, and then...
No, you said, my toast is very buttered right now. And it was
that
like,
was in response to you!
yeah, well, you know what? It's fucking,
and that was
I didn't
after
understand what
I
I'm
said-
saying 80% of the time.
Don't blame me, because your vernacular is bullshit.
I'm keeping all
Welcome
of
to
this.
Four Nerds Save the Universe, episode 27.
Welcome
Did we
to Four
record
Nerds
this
Save the
last
Universe.
week, or has
No,
this
we
been 2
didn't.
weeks?
No,
We were
we're
gone
not.
for a week because I was out of town.
Yeah.
And now
Okay,
we're back
cool.
because I am in town.
Last week, Keith was celebrating his grandfather, and then...
Well, birthday.
I mean,
Potato,
at
tomato.
this age, you just kind of
Those
celebrate
are
the whole person.
Super different things.
Yeah, because you could also... Yeah, never mind.
I mean, the potato and
So-
tomato.
Anyway, seeing as this is kind of recent, so normally we play D&D on Saturdays, but last night Keith was gone because he had a bachelor's party / all-day Factorio game. How did
Yeah,
that go?
I wanted
want
to
to
hear
hear
about
about
that.
Wait, who was the bachelor, that was going to get married? Whatnot.
Marty. The guy
Marty-
that I live in the house of.
oh,
getting
he's like
married.
the owner of the house. Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
And so he's
Yeah,
getting
but
married.
I
and
really
so
wanna
we
hear about
played
Factorio.
Factorio all day with like 9 people
Mhm.
in
Okay.
one room.
Did you guys get the rocket up, or like how far did you get? I guess there's no
we-
way you could have made that at our pace, but
We finished researching the rocket, and somebody was building stuff of it when I went to sleep at like 3 in the morning last night,
Uh-huh.
and we started at noon.
When you woke up, was it like done?
When I woke up, the group of people who were going to go do airsoft had left for airsoft,
Mhm.
and I went on to start working at my job, and that was the day.
Oh, okay.
So
Now-
I don't know what the world state ended up in.
That's a little anticlimactic.
I may try to get a copy of it so we can like load into it or something during a Factorio session or something, but I don't have it right now because I forgot to say when I was
okay.
leaving. But
understandable.
we were up there so late. I did reach the point it was interesting in one session to get all the way to the point where I have a armor that has 4 laser turrets and a fusion reactor, and I'm wiping out all of humanity.
Well, it's one 12-hour session. Okay.
We had a relatively advanced multi-train system and all these crazy inputs, and people. There was like 4
Now-
people who had never played before in the group.
I was going to say, were you the resident expert, or how did that work?
No. There's at least 2 people in the group. Marty, his brother, and somebody else in the group, I think, all have like hundreds and hundreds of hours into the game.
So
like they're-
did they consider you a noob then, basically?
No.
Or do you kind of like hold up to what they
Turns
do?
out that high level play for normal people, high level play isn't that different from what we've been doing. You're just better at balancing lines and knowing what ratios are and stuff like that, and that's like it.
Mhm.
Like obviously,
Yeah, that's
there's
what I figured.
speedrunners that beat it in 20 minutes and all this other nonsense, but like people that just
20
play the game
minutes,
a lot
that's
are
not possible, is it?
well, I don't. There's some speedruns out there of some numbers, and I didn't really want to research them as sentence.
It's
but,
like 6 hours? 7 hours or something like that?
I thought I saw one where they launched a rocket in an hour or something.
Oh, well,
Wow.
I mean, I'm talking about current builds, which are
yeah.
slightly different
Which
targets.
keeps- I mean, how do you? What does the game even end like anymore? Do they still just pretend it's the rocket launch that
yeah,
ends the game?
pretty much.
Because now there's just not an ending, right?
I don't know. But I think that depends on the category and it depends on the version. I'm looking right now, and 15.3 is 5 hours, 26 minutes. And then version 0.12, which is the rocket launch version, is 2 hours. So,
And of course, that's all the more
uh,
confusing because we're talking about which beta patch are we talking about speedrunning and stuff like that. It gets so
right.
modular and weird.
That's interesting. I'm not really too surprised because, like, once you kind of learn a couple of once you learn a main bus strategy, you're just like, well, this is how to play the game.
Yeah.
It just like it's impossible to not use one because of how easy it makes everything and how organized it makes everything.
I was actually a little disappointed because they had blueprints that they didn't make themselves.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people play. It's sad.
They were using blueprints off the compendium for how to balance lines. I'm like, no, that's disappointing. I have my own personal log of blueprints that I'm slowly cobbling together that are all of my own stupid design, and that they're mine. It was weird to see people just doing prefab stuff that's just like the internet's idea of how to solve stuff. So that part was a little bit of a bummer. But it's interesting seeing disagreements on how to generally handle stuff. Like people, one thing I found interesting is that they would spread out their iron drills across a deposit, so that they had no overlap of zone that they were covering.
It makes sense if you want to use less drills, but it's much slower.
You get less output, but
they
use less drills.
Yeah, they wanted to space them out because it would cover the entire thing, but it wouldn't burn it out as fast. But I'm like, well, it only burns out at the rate we're using it, so what's the point?
Yeah,
but there was
the point is
a fundamental
to feel good about
disagreement.
yourself.
Like our whole base was struggling with iron, and I'm like, well, why are we only using like half the iron? Because they're all spaced out. I don't understand.
That's pretty funny.
There was interesting things going on, and what was crazy is people had a tendency to show up like an hour apart at times. So you were teaching people different levels of the game at once at different moments.
See. Like, so this is how you put down a burner drill, and here's how you automate green science.
So we were at a point where we had like 4 or 5 sciences already being automated, and someone showed up and was asking how to build things. So that definitely happened on some level. It was interesting seeing the wander effect happen again too, where there's certain people that don't pick up on anything that's happening at the beginning, and then therefore they're like, if they get stuck in a situation of like, oh, let's go make a new outpost over here, they don't know how to start the game, and that kind of stuff happens. It was honestly a lot of the same stuff that happens in our playthrough, but in microcosm.
That's kind of fascinating.
And was the wife to be like going to live with you guys in the house, or do they have a separate house and that's just his like side house for all you guys?
The fiance has lived here for a long time now.
Oh, okay. So they're do they have like a whole level to themselves, and you guys have different rooms in a different level, or what's the house like?
It's a suburban house.
Well, yeah,
okay.
But I mean,
feel like at
how
some
many
point,
people are living with again? 5?
At the moment, I'm one of 2 roommates right now, basically.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. You made it sound like it was basically just like a hippie commune. Just people like coming and going.
2 or 3 other guys.
Yeah,
well,
that's kind of what I thought.
What's happened is multiple people have moved out over the course of the last 2 years. It's been now that I've been here, which is weird to think about, that I've been living in this little 10 by 10 space for this long, but never put up stuff on the walls because I don't think I'm staying here. Yeah. What is it? We've had some crazy. Well, there's one roommate that was just some girl that was going through college and worked at a grocery store somewhere, and she was just always in her room either studying or away doing other stuff. So there was like no contact of any kind.
Literally just a dorm room.
And then eventually
for her,
she moved out.
Basically, yeah.
We had one crazy roommate who will never not be crazy, probably. Who
the guy who was like, grass is my favorite vegetable.
Yeah, he's the guy I told you about.
What?
Who basically got hired somewhere because of his exceptional aptitude for programming and whatnot, but he's like, he had to have taken so long to get a job because he's just like the worst to deal with, basically. Like, he's just so unpersonable and actively problematic. Like I think I told you during a Factorio or during something where like he would like go walking across freshly cut grass, go over like the local like fields and stuff like that are like the public fields, and he would just track the thick mats of cut grass across the floor, and there would just be grass like solid footprints where the clumps would just give up and come off his foot at some point.
And when you told him to clean it up, he proceeds to what? Shove them in his mouth, going like, "This is amazing."
No,
he said you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
He's not an alien. Yeah, he said you wouldn't like me when I'm angry, and I'm like,
Oh, because
I'm like, what the
he said
fuck?
that his grass was his favorite vegetable. So
I couldn't remember what he said, but I knew there was a story involving grass and ridiculousness.
That's why I thought he was going to pick it up off the floor and eat it when, like,
He had a tendency to lay down in the backyard that's all dead grass and weeds and just lay there in the thistles working on his computer programming. And then he would come in and just track in, like, thistles and insects and shit that were just in our house now.
Dude, I kind of do the same thing, except I sit at my desk.
Yeah. And we have an L-shaped couch that has like the end part's like a love seat shaped thing. And he would sit instead of sitting at any sort of desk or even like a TV tray or something like that, he would sit in the L on the floor, leaning sideways against the couch, and he would do that so consistently that there was like a body shaped indent on the side of the couch.
Ew.
And his laptop would be on the pad itself. And at one point, he had an entire pitcher of tea that he spilled and just left.
Oh, God.
And so there was just a giant brown circle in the middle of the floor that had to be cleaned up by adults because he doesn't seem to function like one.
So does he, like, live in his own place now, or whatever happened to that dude?
He's in some other state because he got hired by someone, and I don't know if they're still there because I've had no contact in the meantime, but...
That's probably okay.
I'm just imagining him, like, having to work in an office and just sitting on the floor. Because that's apparently all that he does. Like, sits on the floor, sits outside. Like, does he always have to be grounded? He can't be elevated on something?
I don't know his inner workings of his brain. I don't know. I've never followed him to work or anything like that. I know that he was somebody that no one wanted to talk to at work, and so like there was no like cooperation around, and people just put up with him or something. There was weird experience of having to ask questions like, why is there sap in the shower? And not
sap?
Yeah, you would take tree sap and clay and things like that with him into the shower for like health things. I'm like, so he's got all he's got like a bunch of like bullshit like health beliefs, I guess, where you get bullshit fake products that don't actually do things.
Oh, so he was like rubbing sap on his skin or using it as wash, or
I've seen his desk before, and it was completely covered in different jars and bottles and things that are all like white plastic with like a black label of some kind printed on, and they're all and anything that I've ever seen was like, this thing has clay inside it and stuff like that, and I'm like, what?
I have a funny story from high school about I think I probably told this story about the dude. Well, okay, Wander, you've probably heard this story because you know enough to be my biographer at this point, but so I apologize if you've heard this one already. But I in my English class, one of my peers, I guess you could say, who was a total dumbass. We had a big test at the end of the semester, called a final, I guess. Okay. Anyway, so we had our final exam, and he comes into the classroom, sits at his desk, pulls out a bag of dirt, and just dumps dirt all over his desk and all over the floor around his desk. And he said it was his holy dirt that would give him good luck.
On his test.
On his desk. So
but by putting the dirt on the desk when he takes the test, it's going to give him a good grade.
Yeah, it's going to give him a good grade. So he just dumps dirt all over his desk, all over the floor around his desk. My teacher is like handing out the exams, and he comes over to this guy and he just says like, "What is that?" And he was like, and this is exactly how he talked. I'm not going to exaggerate here or stereotype.
Okay.
"It's my holy dirt." And so my professor was like, my teacher was like, "Are you going to clean that up?" And he was like, "It's for good luck." And my teacher was like, "I'm not giving you this test until you clean that up." And so we had to take the final like 15 minutes late because he had to like go find a janitor to get like a broom and a dustpan to sweep up his fucking dirt and then like put it into a trash can. Oh man, my teacher was so mad. And
Was
you know
it
what?
moisture?
He failed that exam.
Did it have little white nodules in
No,
it from
so
a planter's thing?
it came from like a Native American holy land because we were in New Mexico. And he like went and like took holy dirt from like some Native American site. I don't know.
Okay.
And he just put it into a bag and dumped it on his desk.
Like, I know that there are people that might have, say, like a dried shamrock in like a pendant, or like a tiny vial of something that they wear as a necklace, but like that? What?
I don't know.
I just wonder what the backstory was there.
I could talk about this guy for a long
Like,
time.
some people are difficult just for the sake of it, like as a joke, but some people mean it, and then other people are like pressured by family. Like I can almost imagine like some mother that believes all this stuff and is like, it's like, oh, this will protect you in your test, and like you have to do this, and then he goes
hoping
along
that.
with it.
Or there are people that hope that their antic actually delays the test enough that it's postponed, or something weird in that sense.
No, this guy was just really, really not a forward thinker.
In college,
he literally thought, like, the way I presented it was literally just like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to take the test and no one's going to mind. Like, that was basically his thought process.
I have a funny story about like weird cures. So
Go for it.
I was probably maybe like 7 or something, and I had read somewhere that like pine pollen was supposed to be good for you. I don't know in what or where, but whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so my friends and I were playing outside.
That pranks people with allergies.
I don't know, maybe.
Just jam it up there. That'd be great.
My friends and I would always like to play make-believe outside, and we would be mages and knights, and like one of them would like to be a princess, and we'd be her bodyguards or something. We'd be, tootling around the yard, running around with sticks and stuff, fighting imaginary dragons and whatnot. And one of them had like bumped her head, and we were just like, oh no. And, my mom looked at it and she's like, oh, well, I mean, we can put some ice on it and stuff. And so she had the ice and everything. And I'm like, well, I read about this, about pine pollen, and look, our trees, all their pine pollen's out. They were like the Austrian pines that had those little, they're peculiar. It's like they have a little dongle, but like several of them that come off the branches. And if you bop them, you just get like a plume of yellow pollen.
Oh, we had that stuff all over the place in North Carolina.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, and the interesting thing was we had a lot of trees that were in groups of 3. And I remember the story of that day had been that, the triangles are everywhere, and trios, it means something. And there were 3 of us. So we thought that like it was some kind of weird mystical thing.
Kid
for the
logic. Gotcha.
Yeah, for the story. And
I thought this was a news story.
No. So,
it's fine.
So we went out to the trees and we started running around them, bopping their branches, and there were just plumes of yellow pollen everywhere. And maybe it was just because we were excited, or, we were running around and our adrenaline was up. But, my one friend who bumped her head, felt better by bopping the pollen off the trees, and we were all happy. Thank goodness none of us were actually allergic to that stuff. I think another friend of mine would have been very allergic to that.
Oh, man.
But, it was just funny. That's just one of those old memories.
I have a story actually extremely similar to that one.
Okay.
So it was springtime. We were about to, I think it was either graduate high school or maybe we were just about ready to start summer. I don't really remember, but all I remember is that like all the trees around the campus were just in full blossom. It was really pretty. And I just like saw this one tree and I was like, I've never seen this tree before. And it was like a cherry blossom tree or something. It was so cool looking.
Did it have all the petals flying?
It did have all the petals. They hadn't fallen off yet, but it was in full bloom. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to go up and like inspect this tree. And I walk underneath the tree. And it was just this cloud of like tree stank. Like The tree was basically just announcing to the world, like, I am ready to germinate. And it was just like, it just like was a poison gas cloud of tree stank death.
So,
I mean, I walk in.
Are you sure it's not the semen trees?
Yeah, we had those in college. Those were
The what?
great. So dogwood. I believe it's dogwood.
No, it's not dogwood. It's a different type of tree.
You sure? I'm fairly...
I
Okay.
think it was a different type. It might be like another type of crabapple-y thing
No,
or something.
no, they didn't have
Did it have
apples.
bark?
But this one they have the little white blossoms though, because I suppose our crabapple didn't smell that bad.
Yeah.
But we have a dogwood in the front, and they have completely different petals.
Male. Oh, okay. I don't know, but effectively, there are two. Obviously, tree genders and stuff like
there are
that.
tree and bush genders.
Yeah.
for
So
some,
I don't know if it was the male or the female version of this tree.
it'd probably be but the problem is
It doesn't
they
matter.
would need both, wouldn't they?
But one smells, one doesn't.
Oh, okay, I get it.
And so the female version I think was fine, but the male version stank like
Yeah.
jizz.
Oh my
And
god!
they planted
really?
it all over the dorms.
Oh.
They planted them all. So there were the dorm buildings, and then there were all the academic buildings, and between them was the gymnasium and just a long path. It was called the quarter mile, but wasn't it more than a quarter mile? It was like a third.
Yeah,
It's called
Or
the
something.
Green Mile with the sound of it.
Okay, and so all along
His palms are sweaty.
this path, along
Palm
this path
spaghetti.
were these trees, and people would have to walk through them.
Yeah. Well, whatever tree it was, like, it didn't smell bad. It just was like, if you've ever smelled like something, like, you just like, I'm allergic to that. Like, you just immediately get that sense of like, this is very polleny and I'm dying. Imagine that, but like, if somebody like put it into a bomb and exploded it on you. That's what it was like walking under this tree.
Okay.
And I was walking with a friend of mine, and we both just walk under this tree because we're like, this tree is really cool. It's going to be like really nice and lovely. And we both died. Like, other people like actually came up to us and they were like, are you two okay? Because we just like were immediately just like
Staggering.
like coughing and just like weeping and like running away from this tree. I have another tree story if we want to keep going with tree stories. So it was in high school. It was around springtime. I think we were either graduating or it was the year before, and we were about to go into summer. Anyway, so a friend of mine were walking around campus, and we saw this one tree that we had never really seen before. And this tree,
You're
instead of the
approaching
cherry
strange
blossom
trees
tree,
again.
instead of the cherry blossom tree that was nice and pretty, this was like a tree that got a curse on it. Like, this tree like killed a witch's like son or something. And so like this tree, we went up to look at it. It had like 3 leaves on it in the middle, in the middle of spring. So we knew something was up. And we go on to it, and like this tree had like open like sores of just like sap just oozing out of the tree, just all over it. And then there were like these weird tree spiders that just were crawling up and down the entire tree, just like they were spotted
oozing out of sores.
creepy. Oh god. We were just like, what the fuck is wrong with this tree?
Well, clearly it was
Curse rotten greatwood.
It was exactly like one.
It was being. It must have been like bored into by mites, and like tree mites are terrible.
I don't know what was wrong with that tree, but like,
well, you said that
it
there were
literally.
spider
was
things
like,
crawling
was full
over
of
it.
sores is probably what was wrong with it.
Well,
it was-
but
it
it
had a
creates the
curse.
sores to like ooze the bugs out, but then the bugs keep burrowing, and it was a diseased tree.
Anyone else got any tree stories?
I'm trying to think of some.
I'm surprised I have as many as I just did, but there you are, there's 2.
I mean, I think I already told you guys about the raccoon that suffocated in one, right?
No.
What? I haven't told you guys the raccoon story?
How many animal death stories do you have?
I have tons of animal death stories.
That's not...
Wow, that's a casual sentence.
Okay. Well, I mean...
At one time that we dissected a hermaphroditic pig.
Yeah, the hermaphroditic pig. That was a school-sanctioned dissection.
We have a podcast that's titled "Hermaphroditic Pig Fetus."
The hermaphroditic pig fetus. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Okay, so this is the story of the chubby raccoon. May its soul rest in peace. So we used to live up further by the lake. By the lake, I mean Lake Ontario Lake, and quaint little house. We had a in-ground pool in the backyard, and it backed up to a golf course. So we get a lot of golf balls in our yard, unfortunately. They never hit anything or anyone, but, we would gather them all at the end of the day, and it would be fun to see how many we had. But there was, a stand of trees betwixt the yard and the golf course. And there was this one tree that had just had a large hole in it, but way up high, probably on the second or third story of a building kind of height. And one day I remember walking outside in the snow, and I was probably maybe 4 or 5 then, and I see a raccoon butt sticking out of the tree. and it was pretty motionless, and there was a tail, dangling out, and one of his feet, and it was just okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Poor raccoon. So my mom, she goes, "Oh, I need to call animal control or, someone to get this thing out of the tree, because who knows, it might be dead." So she calls around, and of course, I think maybe the police department or something was like, "Oh no, go to animal control," and animal control's like, "Oh no, we're closed for today." But somehow someone was able to come out. I don't know if it was that day or if it was the next day.
Freelance taxidermist.
I don't know. But they came out with their ladders, and I remember standing in the backyard and just hoping the poor thing wasn't dead, but sure enough, it had suffocated in there, frozen to death. I don't know. They said that it had gotten too large and had tried to, go back into its little home and just got stuck in the tree. The
America.
Poor thing. And that the story doesn't end there. Yes,
Our raccoons are too fat to live.
So they took the raccoon away, and I was upset about this. I would get upset often when my parents...
I'm upset about it, just hearing about it.
The raccoon shall blot out the sun.
Well, I mean, there was the time that an opossum and all her little babies drowned in our pool. That was a bad thing, too.
You didn't cover your pool? What the hell?
No, the pool was covered. My parents were uncovering it, and then they found all their corpses. So somehow they got under the cover. Well, I don't understand that. But in any case, so I was feeling bad about the raccoon. And at the time, Beanie Babies had come out, right? Everyone has. I have over 100 Beanie Babies back at my parents' house, probably.
You ripped out its little raccoon heart and you stitched it into the Build-A-Bear, and it'll live on forever.
No, it wasn't quite like that.
She's
so
not a Satanist.
So
I don't know.
My mom's friend from high school lived a couple states away, and she had heard about the story. So she sent a package in the mail, and I open it up, and I am greeted with a paper towel tube roll, a brown paper roll. And it had a hole cut in it, and Ringo, the raccoon, the Beanie Baby, was stuffed inside it with a leg dangling out and its tail and its butt. and it's like...
I own that one.
Sorry about the raccoon. Here's one that you can have. And I'm just like, and I told my friends this story. They're all cracking up.
Damn.
They're like...
cold.
Well, they thought it was hilarious. I mean, I was glad to have the Beanie Baby. It was probably one of my first Beanie Babies, actually. But, yeah. So, that's how I came to acquire Ringo the Raccoon Beanie Baby. After the terrible demise of Mr. Chubbs, who couldn't climb into his hole in the winter.
All you had to do was capture his soul.
Right.
Oh,
it's like a soul gem in Elder Scrolls.
Soul gem in Elder Scrolls?
You had to
something
you had
dies?
to imbue the Beanie Baby with its death.
I have another little. I have so many like stories about stuffed animals from when I was a kid because I have so many.
I have none.
Oh man, I feel like this whole podcast could be just Shell and I exchanging stories about like stuffed animals and trees, apparently. But ostensibly, I guess this is a gaming podcast, so maybe we should
Allegedly.
Oh yeah.
talk about video games. Yeah, so we talked about Factorio a little bit. What else have people been up to?
I've been playing.
Juan, you've been doing a lot of roguelikes. Actually, a lot of just random games lately.
Wonderbot's also on this podcast.
Yeah,
Hello,
Yay.
Wonderbot.
I am here. Is this the first time I've spoken this entire
I don't
podcast?
know.
It might be. Yeah, it's okay. I've been playing a lot of roguelikes. There have been some good ones. There have been some terrible ones. It's kind of all over the place, honestly. I've been playing a new one called Minion Master. I say new, but it's been in development for like 3 years because they gave me a copy back when I was practically starting YouTubing. And I was just like, this looks nice, but very clearly like nowhere close to done. So I'm just going to wait on this one. And that was probably a wise decision. It's a good game, but it falls to the same trap that a lot of like, I guess... in-dev roguelikes, or just like roguelikes in general run into, which is just the lack of variety. So the premise of the game is actually really neat. You're an imp, and you're like the weakest monster in the dungeon, and your goal is to like become the strongest monster in the dungeon by
what was the name of the game again?
Mid-boss.
Okay, I think you said something different.
I might have. Sorry.
Yeah, you're talking about mid-boss right now, though.
Yeah, mid-boss.
Okay.
I might have said like minion something. Sorry,
Yeah, you did.
brain.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
There's another game that kind of was similar but not as good.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because
Yep.
I was like, this sounds like mid-boss, but he didn't call it mid-boss.
Yeah, sorry. But so it's kind of this. It's
I think
this
Bird's
neat
here
concept
to be the local expert on Wander.
on Wander's
expert on
semi-tired
me.
brain. Yeah. But so unfortunately runs into the same problem that a lot of roguelikes do, which is really low variety. So the entire point is like you take over these monsters, you get their abilities, you get better at like playing these monsters.
Oh, and I'm looking at it. Notably, this is genuinely a roguelike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is like
As is almost never true when that term is used.
No, this
Yeah.
is very, very.
This is everyone
Old
standing
school.
on tiles, moving at the same time when you press a button, and so on.
Yep. Neat thing about it is it has a speed mechanic. It actually, so it kind of does a slightly different thing. Most roguelikes will do it where everybody just gets their turn in order, whereas mid-boss is very much like if you have like if you're playing as the rat, you go way faster than the minotaur, for example. And so you can kind of cheese speed mechanics more than a little to like just destroy your enemies. So very often I will like be low on health as a vampire bat, and I'm just running around life stealing them as they like kind of shamble towards me. And it's
So is it basically a dungeon full of existing creature types, and you basically pick one to play as out of the mix?
but you can
And rise from obscurity.
Yeah, but instead of like having standard healing, you have to heal.
Repossess.
Well, yeah, you heal to full every time you repossess a new creature, but you can also like drop a new creature. But the goal is to master as many of them as possible to give yourself like a wider host of abilities to use, because every creature can then be reincorporated into your imp form and used, which is really neat. And I've effectively generated this unstoppable hit and run fireball machine.
Is that the Aether Bat that you're talking about?
Yeah, the Aether Bat is my is like kind of the crux of the whole thing. The developer, so the Aether Bat has Blink, which just has it teleport randomly around the screen. Unless you're me, where I got a magical item that made it so I can teleport specifically wherever I want. So pretty much unless an enemy has like a long ranged attack, nothing can reach me or touch me or do anything of the sort, which is kind of beautiful. But unfortunately, it does the kind of Pokemon recolor style. So instead, or I guess Digimon recolor style, where literally every like enemy is just a recolor of like a previous enemy you've run into. Like I'm on floor 11 out of 14, and I've only just recently run into a new creature. For the first time in, like, I want to say, like, 6 levels or more. Yeah. And so it's like, you kind of get, like, bat type A and B and stuff like that, but it's very clearly just, like, I don't think they had the time or the budget to like, really make everything, like, as deep as they wanted to go. But unfortunately, it's one of those roguelikes where you're just like, I'm not really sure if I want to play, like, another run of this, which sucks, but I don't know.
You were going to say something about, you said the developers, and then you kind of trailed off.
Oh, well, okay, so part of it is they were watching me play it last night, so this is a problem I have, where I'm, like, playing a game, and they're watching me live, and I'm like, okay, just maybe don't talk about it exactly negatively. Like, I get this performance anxiety where...
Oh no. I went on last night and then bitched about the game.
Yeah, no, I think you said something actually fairly negative.
About the viewers, those videos of that game were not his true opinion.
Almost immediately. I mean, I like the game. It's just one of those where I'm playing it, I'm just like, oh, they need like 3 times as many monsters in this game would be amazing, but because they only have this set, it's kind of like, oh, I don't really want to play this again.
It reminds me when I had that experience of playing through Zenith while praising it, but also talking mad shit about so many parts of it because it's a mess of a game, and then finding out the developers were watching the entire time afterwards.
Kind of conversely, I've actually been playing another roguelike called Dead Cells, which is...
Wait, before we get off this topic, I need to know, did they see what I wrote about their game?
Maybe not.
Oh,
wait. How you've played
Bridges
it?
burned.
No,
How
I didn't.
dare you talk shit about a fellow indie
I just
developer?
went to chat, and he was playing as the Aetherbat, and I was just like, the sound effect makes me want to die.
Yeah, they very, very possibly saw that.
Spellcasting sound effect, Wander, as you play as the Aetherbat.
Oh yeah.
I will pay you good money to mod the game to replace that sound effect with either nothing or something better.
I suppose, depending on how you worded it, it could be construed as, a form of constructive criticism.
Sentence, this game looks like something that my dad would get me when I was a kid off of a freeware shovelware CD.
Oh no.
Probably a pretty constructive thing.
Oh no.
Was
not
it
that part.
Did
But the
sound
noise,
better or worse than the ghost sound from freaking Sexy Brutale that would trigger 15 times
I don't know, man. The Aetherbat sound is like... Like, it's the worst.
I mean, I would argue that the ghost sound was the better sound effect, but it was repeated, and it was so much louder than everything else.
Yeah, that game had a high-pitched laughing ghost noise that would play whenever you were in a room with ghosts. It would play at the moment you entered as the ghost spawned, but the problem was if you peeked through a door to look into the next room, the moment you stopped peeking in the door, it would respawn the ghost in the room you were in, making the sound effect play again, over and over again.
And that game is about repetition and backtracking.
And peeking through doors a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, you triggered the same sound 6 times in the same room without leaving the room.
And I mean, the interesting thing with that, too, is I know that sound cues are important for games, but how difficult would it be for someone, say, who's hard of hearing to actually play video games?
It's extremely difficult.
Depends on how much the sound matters, I guess.
I saw this one extraordinarily cool video about this topic in an oblique sense, where they were a player that was blind. And so they required, they were talking about what games they could play purely off of audio cues. And they said that the only game that you can play if you're blind, all the way through, like that they said that they could really get into and really understand what was going on was, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. They said every other game didn't have distinct enough, sound effects for them to understand,
But they're still like memorizing the entire game as they go, basically, right? Like that's
so they were just like, basically putting together audio cues in a long sequence of like
insane
cause
trial
and
and
effect.
error.
Yeah, trial and error, which to be fair is not really that much different from the way
playing it with your eyes.
Yeah, because that game is it was a very fun game for the time, but holy God, it's not a fun game to play. It's just frustrating now.
Yeah, because I know that in a lot of games there are puzzles that are either music puzzles or sound puzzles, and unless there's a visual to correspond with it, I know that there are a couple, like, I remember in Riven, you'd be twirling these little wooden balls and they would make an animal noise, but if you have to be near the animal to hear the animal noise, and so... And it's interesting. And it makes me think of, like, do they put their games through filters to check for color blindness, per se, so that they...
Some developers will, but most don't. They don't even think about it.
Some of the filters are just kind of bad.
Yeah, they are.
It seems like the color filter they do for colorblind people on Doom seems to just make the whole game green.
Well, I remember fiddling around with Photoshop, and it made everything either like a weird periwinkle blue or olive green. Yeah.
No, it's difficult to develop stuff and not take for granted, like, your full abilities. And working at Amazon, like, we're constantly receiving this message of, like,
receiving meth
message.
No, they're always there's always talks.
You can get it delivered to you within the hour via drones.
There's always talks, like workshops and correspondences and, like, tons of stuff that are just like, here's how to design your software so that, like, it's actually accessible, and things like that. Like, I was talking to Wander about Braille. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing, but
this is
really
one
cool
thing
stuff.
I'm wondering. So you know Braille? Have they developed?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't think any of us know Braille.
Well, I mean, like, not
time.
knowing how to read it, but know of it. So, like, is it possible for there to be something akin to a Kindle book, but, like, it just pushes up the nubs when needed for a page?
So, last time we played Mastorio, okay, the answer is yes. Kindle released a $500 version very recently that uses a Braille display.
Okay.
And what it does is it pokes pins up, basically, through like a membrane, and you read it that way.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks like... It looks a lot like a credit card.
So you can that displays 20 characters at a time. That's all you get.
Only 20. Okay.
Yes, because most Braille displays that are full sized cost like $6,000 or $7,000. So this is one that they very recently made, and I saw a talk on. So, but it's really interesting because I learned that Braille literacy amongst, like, the deaf community, or not deaf. Wow. The blind.
Whoa.
Around the deaf community, it's real low. I'm telling you.
Oh, no.
Surprising no one.
Whoa.
Braille literacy. Well, I mean, I say the phrase deaf community a lot more than I say the phrase blind community. Anyway, so amongst the blind community, amongst the blind community, Braille literacy has fallen off really badly in the past, like, couple of, like, 2 or 3 decades. Because, everything moved to digital displays, which until very recently didn't have Braille stuff, and it's still, like, super expensive. So everything moved to digital, and then by extension, everybody just started using text-to-speech for their accessibility stuff.
Oh, yeah, because audiobooks and stuff. So,
Yeah, so they use audio text-to-speech for a lot of things. But text-to-speech works really, really badly for highly technical work. So if you ask, like, I want a text-to-speak version of some computer code I'm working on, and it says, like, if open paren, this condition equals this condition, close paren, open paren.
Like the Moonbase videos.
Yeah, and it's just like you just get this dump of, like, information that you can't, like, comprehend. Or
also, it must
what a
be
lot
a...
of...
sorry.
What a lot of text-to-speech stuff will do, it'll be like, if there's an image, it'll just be like, picture below is the quadratic formula, image.png. And you're like, God damn it, that's not gonna... Like, it doesn't actually, like, do the formula, for example. So Braille, they're trying to increase Braille literacy in the communities because it's really way better than text-to-speech. But like right now, Braille literacy, I think is at like 18%. Like it fell off real bad because, in part due to digital displays just crushing it. But who knows? Maybe we'll start seeing that come around lately.
I think a friend of ours was potentially going to participate in like a cybernetic eye study.
Yes.
I think that would be really cool. But
what would it do?
You would actually be able to see through it, but it'd be black and white.
Oh, I see. So it's almost like a cochlear implant, but for your eyes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've looked at it whenever it pops up on the internet, and I'm like, that is the coolest thing.
What I was also thinking for like the text-to-speech is it must really botch like sci-fi and fantasy names in novels.
Oh, I am sure. I mean, God, it probably couldn't even pronounce like Hermione in Harry Potter.
I remember reading this one fantasy novel series, and there was an elven city, and I think it was called Ysteriophoerin. And yeah, I remember having to go over that a couple times. I'm like, oh, that's how all the vowels work together there. Okay.
Yeah, the part of the talk that I saw was somebody actually just like pulling up a bunch of text-to-speech stuff on common operations, and they were just like showing how it's like just the worst. They were just like, here, you want to like log on to your internet and like enter your Wi-Fi password? Let's try that with text-to-speech, and it was impossible. Like it just does not work for anything outside of very, very narrow applications. But yeah,
I wonder how they choose voices.
Oh yeah, what were we gonna say?
I was just
voices?
wondering. Yeah. I mean, I know that there are people would audition for, say, audiobooks because they want an author or the publisher would want a book read in a particular way. Actually, that's another thing. Do you guys like it when people put on voices for characters in a book or not?
We're all Let's Players, so...
I mean, above all else, I just prefer voice cast.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean they actually do cast a whole line of...
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about Ender's Game, actually.
Oh, really?
Ender's Game has a series of voice actors in it. It's not perfect. I think the main chapters are actually just one person, but there's back and forth between two other characters between chapters and stuff like that are like sort of planning the stuff that's going on in the story, and those are two different voice actors from the main one and stuff like that. And like the bigger the voice cast, the better. Like what's really cool is a really good one was actually World War Z. World War Z's voice cast is the original World War Z story is about a guy going around the world touring and interviewing all these people who survived the zombie apocalypse, because it happens after the zombie apocalypse has been resolved already.
Yeah, unfortunately we had only seen the Brad Pitt movie, so...
Yeah, so in the book, it's because every chapter is a different person around the world in their story. That means every single chapter is a different voice actor, including like Mark Hamill and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, if they ever did the Animorphs, I mean, that's in the first person as well. Like, I could imagine them having those with a cast of kid characters.
Yeah, it just works better. It's like, oh, these people are supposed to be all around the world, so we'll get some person that actually like has that accent to speak in first person for this chapter and stuff like that, as opposed to Pete, was it the Game of Thrones guy, Roy Dotrice, has to do so many voices for so many characters as he reads these gargantuan books, and he will straight up forget some of the voices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind that. But
because the books come out so far apart from each other in particular, like by the time like the next one comes out, like a Dance with Dragons and stuff like that or whatever, like oh, I guess Arya sounds like that now and stuff like that will just happen because he doesn't like review every single voice from 4, 5, 10 years ago or whatever when each book comes out to actually get every voice right.
So it happened to me in my extremely short-lived Owlboy series. I think like Getty's voice changed like 3 times in 2 episodes.
Getty's voice started as like nasal nerd for me, and then I don't know what it ended as, but it was not.
You changed it a couple times.
Is that like you meet Getty like immediately, Then he goes away and you meet like 30 other characters. Then you meet Getty again and you're like, oh shit, he's back. What was his voice?
And then you find out, Getty's the main one.
Yes.
Yeah, people were a little upset when, who was the spider kid?
Oh no,
that
I didn't
wasn't
play that
actually
game.
a spider.
I want to play it more.
Okay,
Spoilers.
Sorry, spoilers. And he was like,
who was the guy that died at the
end? No.
Owlboy.
So he was sort of like an
Owlboy was dead
anti-hero,
the whole
maybe
time.
even antagonist at the beginning. So I was playing him sort of cool and like that kind of character. And then he's like a mewling kid that wants to get out of the house, and his brother and his father are chastising him all the time. So then I was like, oh, guys. And then people were like, no, we like the old voice. So I had it that when he like throws on his getup and is a spider again.
Oh, he becomes cool.
I think I tried to make him sound like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Whoa!
Because that's exactly what his character was that exact irritating personality.
You know what I did is I made Getty, when he came back, I didn't realize he was going to be like the main dude that would never shut up. I made him have the voice of Geddy
instead
Lee.
Of you.
I made him have the voice of Geddy Lee from Rush.
Oh.
That was an extraordinarily poor decision in hindsight because he never shut up.
Well, I mean, what you say about his company is what you say about society.
It's what I said about every goddamn thing in that game.
Actually, when Wander was playing, what was it, Alphonse? Was his name Alphonse?
Yeah, I think so.
That's the name of one of my bunnies.
Oh, we're talking about vocal regrets?
Well,
yes.
Yeah, well, this is particularly from Owlboy, but like you thought that he was just going to be some kind of antagonist character,
like the one-off antagonist, not like a teammate. So
he made these like deep.
I gave him kind of like a, that kind of voice, and it was just such a bad mistake.
You'd be hoarse at the end of the day.
I was so hoarse.
I was hoarse after like 3 minutes of voicing Geddy Lee.
So I played Mother Russia Bleeds with Andrew, and we were just giving every character a voice based on what they looked like. And everyone's like horrible, run-down, beat-up, nasty, junky monster. So all of our voices were just murder on our voices, and every single session we were losing our voices completely. Because we literally couldn't handle everything, like every voice we decided on, because no one looks anything other than like they're going to have a horrible voice.
An issue that we had with Night in the Woods was half the characters we couldn't tell the gender of. And it wasn't until we were already a couple sentences in someone's lines that were like, oh, yeah. And then we'd have to switch off. And I think for Selmer's, I changed her voice at least 3 or 4 times. But most of the other characters that were more frequent were consistent.
Instead, I would just ignore everyone's gender.
Well,
whatever, I already decided.
You weren't co-commentary Let's Playing it, so...
Yeah.
Whereas,
I
would do female voices and he would do male voices. Except then I did the voice for that one cultist, and then he ended up being the main cultist. And I'm like, darn it,
Jill,
no.
Can you give an impression of Wander doing a female voice?
Why not ask him to do a female voice?
No, I want to hear your take on his take on female voices.
Hello there. How are you today?
A little bit more gravel. A lot, like an octave and a half lower.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got it.
Hello there. No. He can do a high voice. He can do a high voice. Come on. Yeah, see? He can do it just about as high as me.
It's his exasperated voice. That's his girl voice.
Yeah, his high pitched. Yeah, that is right. Come on, do it.
Stop.
Oh.
No.
Just act like everyone's telling you to sing.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah.
So I guess I
can't.
Right now?
This is my voice here. I'm trying to sound as manly as possible. And the terrible. Huh?
I don't know where this is
my
going.
Man voice. I'm a man.
When I was in high school,
I'm going to bicep later.
When I was in high school, my Spanish teacher had this brilliant idea of having the entire class make Spanish sitcom videos based on her favorite Spanish sitcoms.
Weird.
But there were only like 6 girls in the class and like 20 dudes. And so
you had to do it Shakespeare style.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't consulted on this. All
Okay.
my friends were kind of dickish, so they're just like, "You're just going to be the female
You're
part."
the girl.
And I was just like, I don't even like
Come
the character
over here, big
at
boy.
all. Yeah,
That's
so
like playing the
in protest, I
Power
shaved my
Rangers on the
head
playground.
and like refused to dress up in any way, shape, or form. They like had a costume for me, and I'm like, you wear it. Like, now that I'm older, I don't give a shit. But then it was just kind of like, I don't appreciate being forced into the role. If I had volunteered, I'd be interested. But I think I'm just going to make this worse, just in general.
I think for the most part, I always volunteered to be the guy if a guy was necessary for a writing assignment or a skit.
To be fair, this is a Spanish like soap opera, so not exactly what I would call volunteer.
What was happening in the story? Was there someone cheating? Was there murder?
So what we did was we watched this Spanish soap opera up until the like final 2 episodes, give or take.
And she's like, write your own ending.
Yeah, write your own ending, and it was like leading up to the Sweet 16 and stuff like that. I'm like, who cares? This is like
no los quinceañera.
I have never been interested in any of this.
Quinceañera is 15?
¿Por qué no nos quinceañera?
I guess yeah, it would be the Sweet 15 version, whatever. But yeah, it was the quinceañera, and just asking a group of dudes to like write about a quinceañera is just like, it's dumb. Why?
What's the Spanish word for hottie? Hottie patati.
Our major Spanish assignment was like a how-to video that we were supposed to record, and everyone was doing it on VHS tapes, of course. Mm-hmm. But so my friend and I were partnered up, and we decided how to become a Jedi Knight. And that was awesome, because I already had a whole like Jedi Knight outfit and my Mace Windu FX Master Replica lightsaber and everything. And her brother ended up playing as an alien and a bounty hunter and a couple other characters, and it was fun. We were talking about like the physical rigors of training,
fantasy setting,
meditation.
Or like a Spanish assignment is kind of cheating because they're just like, "Wir haben ein Lightsaber," or like. Wir haben. Wow, that was German.
Keith,
I don't know.
what's the German word for saber?
Don't know.
Or sword?
That's
probably saber. But it would just be like, muy Padawan or something like that. Like you don't have to translate it.
I think I used the word apprentice and then for like the lightsaber weapon.
Apprentisivo.
Yeah. To that effect.
For the record, there's something magical about trying to watch like other dubs of videos. Star Wars in Spanish specifically is kind of magic. Because like Darth Vader, it does kind of do that, where it's just like, you know, Spanish, Darth Vader, Spanish. And it's just like, huh.
I always like when you're watching an episode of like a TV show and there's like a musical segment and then they don't have the budget to voice act over the musical segment.
Oh.
So it's like a weird, like, it's like, I don't know, The Simpsons or something like that. So it's just like Homer voice, like Spanish Homer voice. Was like, El Marjo. And then like all of a sudden it's like, da, 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 da. And then, I don't know, some musical number, but it's like back to like the English version. But it's also way quieter for some reason. So it's actually, like, what the hell happened? Where'd all the sound go?
What I find really interesting is with Disney films and such, where sometimes they try casting their cast so that they have like as much of a similar sound to the original English cast as possible, or they have a completely different take and choose a completely different like kind of tenor for their characters, and it's just like, wow, it's interesting just how the quality of one's voice can change a character
Shell,
somewhat.
do you remember Croatian Homer Simpson / like Croatian Simpsons
funny.
at all?
Oh yeah, I remember that was on one night. Yeah.
We one of the first nights we were there, we tried turning on the TV just to see what we could get, and it was Croatian Simpsons because apparently Simpsons was really popular over there. But so Homer was like dead on perfect, like same like voice quality. Marge, no.
What did she sound like instead? Was she really high pitched?
No. Marge actually sounded like a normal person as opposed to that.
Okay.
So it was weird having Marge.
Yeah,
not
Marge
have,
is weird.
Yep. Oh man. So this.
Now I'm just thinking of the Game Grumps collaboration.
Yeah. I guess I do sound like Oni right now.
Yeah, you do.
I go buy eggs for Bart. Okay. Anyway,
when Amanda finds out that Bird's just like Bumblebee from the Transformers movies and is downloading all of his lines from other people.
Anyway, so
I actually did my first ever video for my my language classes, all the way back in like 2007. Yeah, that was 10 years ago. Shit. So that was it was like my first ever like YouTube style video basically, and it's because we were supposed to produce a like 5-minute video for the class and then turn that in, and it was all supposed to be in the language and everything. So my friends and I decided to make a German game show featuring zombies.
Oh.
And so they would just get asked stupid questions, but then the moment anyone answered any question incorrectly, it would just smash cut to them being dragged away screaming.
With the zombies.
Jesus.
And like not funny. Like the screaming was not meant to like silly at all. It was just a smash cut to weirdly morbid like dragging away, then back to the show as if nothing happened.
And where did the zombies come in?
It was just that's the dragging
if you
apart
skip the question, you die.
Okay.
The implication that everyone that does the questions incorrectly just dies horribly. This is all, and weirdly, yeah, it's like that was 10 years ago. That was like our final project for like junior year German class.
That reminds me of
I'm watching it right now, and it's a fucking mess because I didn't consider.
You didn't believe in editing.
No, actually, it's
second takes.
There's so much editing in it, actually. But like at the time, I never considered the idea that about like how I was going to get the footage and stuff like that. So when we filmed it, I just filmed it and didn't think about it, and then found out later that it was like somehow the only remaining camcorder in the world that only films to tape.
Oh God!
After the project's already done recording and everything, and everyone's gone, and so then I had to figure out how. Like I'd learned things like I had to learn new words like firewire and all these other things to figure out how to ever fit anything together. And the resulting video is like it's probably like 4 frames per second. It's like this is the only thing I was able to export onto my whatever fucking computer I had at the time and whatever connection I managed to put together. Because that was just all I was able to put together and made the video out of that. It's the most disappointing outcome.
This is going to sound super cheesy, but so the same friend and I that did the Jedi Knight apprentice thing, we had done it was Tom Sawyer. We had to do our own like reenactment of scenes from Tom Sawyer. And I was Huckleberry Finn and my friend was Tom Sawyer. And it was so weird putting on a Huckleberry Finn voice. But we were doing the scene where we see Injun Joe, I think that's how they pronounced it, burying the body of a guy that he had murdered. You guys had read Tom Sawyer, right?
Yeah.
I never have, actually.
You've never read
I've
Tom
never
Sawyer?
read Tom Sawyer. My class read Huckleberry Finn.
Oh, we also read Huckleberry Finn.
My class read Huckleberry Finn, and I read Tom Sawyer for fun because it's pretty short. So I was like, might as well knock out both.
I don't know if we read them back to back or different years.
It felt like it was
Probably
just
different
implied that they just assumed we already read it in a previous year or something. Like obviously, some other class you took would have required you to read Tom Sawyer at some point. So we're just gonna start with Huckleberry Finn, and I'm like,
so
all right.
There's a bunch of hilarious things. So the dagger that we had our other friend who was Injun Joe used to slay my first friend's brother, who was the victim. they had Sting from Lord of the Rings, but like the one that makes clanging noises and glows. So she starts stabbing my friend's brother, and it's like clank, and she throws it on the ground while she's quote unquote burying the body, and it's like clang, shing.
Jesus.
It's like, okay, Sting, stop that. And at that point, our characters were hiding in the bushes watching the whole ordeal, and they were supposed to be bringing like a cat to the graveyard to bring out ghosts, or I don't know. But so we have this cat stuffed animal, and as we run away in fright, I throw it into the air, and literally a couple seconds later, it comes back down. So I threw it up like clear into the sky, and it was just hilarious watching that.
Oh my god. I want to watch this stuff now. I want to watch both of the things you both talked about.
And afterwards,
I think mine actually is on YouTube.
I have to see if ours ever got to be there, or my friend still has them. And then we did a stop motion animation at the very end with her Star Wars Legos. And it was essentially C-3PO and R2-D2. And, C-3PO was going, no animals were harmed in the making of this film. And what? And R2-D2's like, and it's like, wait, what do you mean that some were? And you see the Imperial shuttle come down, and there are a bunch of stormtroopers, and it crushes all but one. And the last stormtrooper's like, yeah, I survived. And then we have the ominous music, and the door just like comes down right on top of him, and Darth Vader walks down. He's like, and I'm the producer. And it was just like weird. We were weird, okay? But it was all stop motion, and it was so much fun to do. And I think at the end of another video, or no, that was her brother's video, he had a news report with an X-Wing on fire, and the fire was made out of paper. And he did a much better stop motion where the pilot of the X-Wing came out of his vehicle and was on fire. The fire was changing at every moment, and he was like running around in circles and stuff, and then turned into a pile of ash. And it's just like, we were trying to capture that, but we weren't quite as good as he was. But yeah,
should have gone to film school.
I don't know. Stop motion, pretty time consuming stuff.
Stop motion is like the lowest of low art of film school, I'm sure.
Oh.
Well, I'm trying to think of
Wallace and Gromit creators of Wallace and Gromit
and Chicken
Run.
What
about all the Tim Burton stuff though? Like that's intense.
Well, Tim Burton's definitely low quality film school.
I imagine that film school is just like black and white, like shots of like somebody just like looking at a vase, and then like a cut to like them like passed out in a gutter, and then a cut to them like watering the plants in the vase, and then a cut to them passed out in the gutter, and then a cut back to them like throwing the vase out a window, and then a title card that just says like Fiend, and then a question mark.
Do you think teachers enjoyed these film assignments?
Oh hell no!
Just to have, I know that kids like the film assignments in a way, aside from the actual filming and editing process, trying to get it together.
High school and stuff. I thought you meant like the shit I just described.
Oh no! I was talking about middle school and high school.
It's because they don't want to produce actual.
They're
usually overworked. Yep.
They just want time off, basically. So they just like, hey, we're doing speeches this month. That'll take up a week. Everyone doing speeches.
It is true. It would take up several days of a class going through everyone's videos.
Yeah, I think it took my class like a week.
It was very recognizable pattern that every high school class I took near the end, like the last week or two, would just not be classes. Like they just like, okay,
we're going to do rolling presentations, and we're going to do 2 presentations a day. And I was like, please be last, please be last, please be last. And then I have first. An S at last name, so I was always last, and I was like, yes!
We had to do
I have a B for a last name, a B-A.
She had to do a cat food commercial. I don't even know how this
would... commercial?
Yeah, I don't know what class it was for, but it was funny because we
Cat
had to lace the cat's
class?
cat food with catnip in order to lure. We had to lure the cat to the food because she refused to perform for the camera.
That probably violates the law. It certainly sounds unethical.
Catnip is totally cool.
Well, okay,
Oh, yeah,
so she wasn't
no.
actually advertising for that particular food. She was
Catnip
creating a
laced with
faux
acid.
food for the class. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It'd
But
be
it was
like
funny.
if a Jay and Silent Bob movie was filmed and they were just like, if you do a good job in the scene, we'll give you some heroin.
Jesus.
But I remember for the credits,
He's
I had
clean now.
I had brought one of our really old Tom Jones cassette tapes to like play. It's the "What's New, Pussycat? Whoa, 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 whoa. What's New,
Yep.
Pussycat?" Yeah, that song. Pussycat, pussycat, I love you. Yes, I do. Yeah, those are the good old days.
No.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Somebody needs to try to draw a flow chart of this conversation.
I gave up.
We were talking about you at your
we're talking
bachelor
about
party.
Owlboy.
The
At
guy
one
with
point,
grass.
I was like, I got a segue. Wanted to talk about a
trees,
repetitive game. I can
animals-
transition to my repetitive
animals
game, and that was like
dying
40
in
minutes
trees.
ago.
Yeah.
Video games, how it would work for blind and
Don't
deaf
actually recap
players
the
playing
entire
video games.
conversation.
Sorry, I have a
It
good
would
memory.
take so long.
Welcome to the second half of this podcast episode where we recap the first half in detail.
Second
Sorry.
half of
the
this
last
podcast will now be the
episode
first half of the
recording-
podcast, but backwards.
Okay, well,
I've actually been doing that in D&D where I have like little recaps and I'm just like, this is like the hammiest shit, but I really like it, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
You think I fucking remember what happened between a week of D&D? Like, I'm not taking notes. If you didn't do that,
I
I'd
am
be
I
like,
mean, you
notes.
are taking some notes, and that you literally
Yeah.
take notes on your character to play the game.
oh yeah, okay, let me look at that. Like, oh yes, Greg have great axe. Where it came from, I don't know.
What are previous notes? Oh yes, don't fuck with Greg.
I'm just trying to keep tab of how much gold I have, and then I have to account for all your gold with my gold.
I account for my gold myself. Oh wait, no, I shouldn't. Ha, it's Shell's turn. Shell, I'm not even gonna keep track of it. Shell has to deal with it, and if she doesn't do a good job, then Greg's gonna be pissed. It's called roleplay, right?
I think I only
Sure.
have 2,500 of your gold.
well,
okay?
you're gonna have you do only have 2,500, so.
Of your gold and of Keith's gold, because that would be too much
So
for
if
you guys
I go to the
carry.
store and I'm like, I would like to buy this piece of bubble gum for 13 bronze.
You gotta ask for it like you're asking for mom's allowance.
Ellerin, can I have
Lauren.
some bubble gum?
No, you just had bubble gum.
No,
we
I
have
didn't.
bubble gum at home.
You can't prove that I
The
have bubble
conversation I
gum.
hear every time children are in stores is they ask for stuff, and then the mom's always like, "We have that at home. We just need to get home, and you have it." And then they start throwing a tantrum because they can't have it now. and
Okay.
it's
What
off
are the
shelf.
worst tantrums you've ever witnessed in public?
Adults?
Yeah.
Adults?
Adults.
Yeah,
Okay.
adults show the worst tantrums.
Wanda, you sound like you had something to say.
Oh, I just...
Children.
I think he's just
No.
drifting through space now.
No, I mean, I'm just playing Dreadmore while you guys converse about things that...
Whoa,
I
that's an older
generally-
one.
Yeah.
Dungeons of
Well-
Dreadmore.
Yeah, why not?
Man, I hate that game's art.
It's awful, but it's
I
better
noticed
than it's better than Mid Boss.
They have caterpillar eyebrows.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Um,
game's art never gets worse than its actual promotional art, which is the worst.
It's true.
Because
I-
the banner
Let me
art is
look.
like, oh, I hate looking
It's-
at you.
So this is an interesting problem with
Why are
roguelikes.
your eyebrows credit cards?
Oh, right. This fucking... Oh.
It's honestly one of the best roguelikes on the market, period. It just...
I just noticed
It's
that
ugly as
you have an entourage
sin.
of animals with
I think
hearts
it's the first roguelike I
fluttering
ever
after
played.
them.
Was this made in RPG Maker version 2 or something?
I don't know.
Wow.
But like in reality, it's an amazing game.
Mhm.
It's
Has
actually really
there ever
impressive.
been a
They made
hit
it the Time
game-
Splitters 2 level creator.
Has there ever been a hit game made with a pre-generated game creator system?
Of course.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
tons of RPGs. Honestly,
Risk of Rain was Game Maker.
Really?
Yeah.
A ton of games are game.
Well, I don't think he's talking about. I don't think she's talking about just making it in a Maker program because that's pretty common. But I think she means like using the existing assets. Like every infamous Unity shitty horror game, like that werewolf one or Slender Man, which was just all the prefab forest crap, and then one really badly modeled Slender Man that teleports around it.
Okay.
I mean, if I remember right, wasn't it like On or something like that? That was an RPG Maker game. Though I guess they had their own assets. Oh, Off. There we go. Sorry. Wrong direction.
I would say there's probably a ton of games that are RPG Maker.
Oh yeah.
I keep getting these like emails from developers being like,
all you have to do is type RPG Maker into the browser of search. Into the search bar of Steam, and you just get hundreds of games.
Yeah, there's a ton on Steam.
the recent Darling One Shot that people are a big fan of. I think.
Yeah,
there's another RPG Maker game.
I think I got a key for that. I was tempted to play it.
I was thinking of the anime dating game variety kind of games with the avatars.
There's
stuff.
there's talk
dearth of games.
There's absolutely like formula. There's prefab formula programs for like making programs where two portraits just talk at each other, and then there's also Twine games. Twine is a whole engine for just having basically a choose your own adventure story where you click on highlighted text that makes you go to the next page based on decisions.
Right.
So
I want to make a Twine game that like. What happens is that, like, what happens visually and what happens in the story starts to diverge after a little while. Oh. So you start seeing things that, like,
until it's aren't
real. And I want it to be just, like, where your decisions, like, I don't know. It's just, like, a cute idea I've had of where, like, you make these decisions and your character, like, doesn't actually, like, follow through on them. Like, if they don't have the confidence to do it, they do something else. And then, like... just stuff just doesn't like work out, and you see like inner dialogues as opposed to like actual people talking to each other. I don't know, very vague ideas that I want to put into like an actual Twine game if I felt like
I played
doing
a Twine game on my channel called This Book is a Dungeon that was functionally like Lovecraftian dungeon crawler Twine game where like you'd be like you'd be like looking through like cultist books to figure out how to summon a demon by its name based on its characteristics, and like or like going through rooms where horrible things would just happen if you did the wrong things, and all this weird demented shit was going down. There's everything's out there. Every type of game exists now. We did it. We won the internet, and all the games.
I'm looking through a lot of these RPG Maker games. A lot of very scantily clad women.
A lot of very badly drawn portraits, because that's the part they have to draw.
Yeah, my personal favorite are all of the people that are trying to recapture the magic of Undertale by trying to be Undertale a second time around.
Oh yeah.
God.
That happens.
Have you played any like Undertale knockoff copycat games yet?
Anytime somebody sends me a copycat game, unless it's like very obvious that they've put a lot of like work and love into it beyond just like remaking Undertale.
How would it be a copycat game? Is it like the
similar mechanics, very similar looking writing? Some have like straight up the same battle system, and I'm like, did you try? No, okay, gotcha.
On the topic of copycat stuff, there's actually been some interesting things going on because remember we talked before about games that seem to just blatantly copy paste Banner Saga, like it's to the point of being weird. There are now like 2 or 3 games out there that have the art style, general turn-based strategy stuff, grid layout, camera perspective, parallax scrolling, everything, like every single element of Banner Saga pretty much. There's like 2 or 3 games like that already. But what got weird is then I haven't played it, so I can't confirm what it's like exactly to tell for sure, but the Stoic just published a game made by one of the founders of the company, and which are, those are the people that made Banner Saga. They made a game called Killers and Thieves, which looks distressingly like another game. which is like, oh, now they're making games that look weird like other games. It's weird how that happened when they were the ones that were getting copied so hard, because their game Killers and Thieves looks identical to this War of Mine to a weird level.
Oh, really?
Like, if I actually played it, I don't know if it would feel the same, but like all the way down to the interface and like walking through like side-scrolling multi-floor houses and like having little pickup icon things show up as you're walking by all the interactions, and then having the top left corner be a series of portraits with stats next to them that look like a piece of paper sticking out, and like going around and like the having like a top-down view of the entire city to choose your missions, then go into your side-scrolling multi-floor like scavenging missions. I'm like, this is weird. This is genuinely weird.
It's really difficult when it comes to like creative work, because I remember reading articles about this where people are concerned about one of their characters being copied or the plot to their story, yada yada. And obviously there are coincidences, and then there are people that are like, hey, this looks really cool, or this works, and then they implement it into their own piece and they might tweak it a little bit. And I think there's like crazy percentages of it has to be 80% different or something like that. But how can you really
I'm still more okay with copycats than like people just straight up lifting games.
What games have been straight up lifted?
There was that Hotline Miami clone, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Russian one.
There's like 5
like Telephone Moscow or something like that.
Or not This Is the Police, but some similar name of like there's some cop game where you're busting through houses top down and the whole camera's swaying with you and all that stuff's happening just like in Hotline Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, there's you get a lot of copycats whenever something does well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's like kind of a low barrier to entry, like an Undertale game.
Oh, yeah, indie games.
I mean, granted, the amount of love that was put into the art.
I mean,
on the
how
surface,
old is Gianna Sisters now?
Yeah, wow. Huh.
Actually, I've been following this one artist who does a lot of work for this game called Shardbound, I think.
I checked. The Gianna Sisters is older than me.
And I just wanted to bring it up because supposedly it was trying to implement a way for viewers on your Twitch stream to give you like points or material towards helping your armies fight against your opponents and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like a card game.
That sounds like just a shitty
tactical, way.
If the game relies on your Twitch viewing to do well in it, then that's just like a really shitty marketing campaign to try to trick people into advertising their game.
Yeah.
Really? You think so?
That seems really cynical, yeah.
The Twitch interactivity, I don't know how far like the Twitch stuff goes, but it's like, let your watchers participate in the action.
I mean,
and
at
it's
this
like,
point, there's probably over 100
Twitch
Twitch-integrated games where it just follows the IRC chat and reacts to it in various ways.
Actually, that's another thing. I've noticed that there are cheers now, and before people
use... what the hell are those?
It's a tip, so somebody can cheer you, and you get like effectively...
It's their
you get a small amount of
currency.
Money. Yeah,
because before I noticed
like
people were using something called like Revlo, and actually Revlo is going under.
It's really no different from just a standard donation, just with like a fancy animation and so on and so forth. You also like earn badges, which I guess I should work on. But I guess I can't pull it up because I'm doing display capture. But I've made, I want to say, about $40 from Cheers.
I know that some people now have like really obnoxious integrated animation things where like it's like a tip jar on the screen where the 3D animated cheers are physically falling into the now they have a giant cup that takes up a ton of the screen.
Yeah,
where a big animated cheer falls into the cup and bounces around with its own like seemingly like procedurally generated like physics and everything.
Like
and it's like
stuff.
It's such an irritating spectacle, but it's also the same one on like every channel as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
so
well, usually it's because it's pre-made. You can download it from probably Streamlabs or Twitch or Night Dev or something like that, and so everybody just uses the same one. There's a Night Dev has like a follow notifier.
Speaking of, there's a cheer.
Yep.
Somebody heard the cue.
Yep. So Night Dev, which is the people that made Nightbot, my moderating bot thing, they have like a follow notification and whatnot, and it functions quite well actually, but a lot of people just kind of use the default thing, which is like a running zombie, which looks really painfully generic, after the nth time you've seen it. So I will like see people doing it, and it's supposed to like look super nice and fancy, and I'm just like,
I don't think I've ever watched any Twitch
some effort.
stream that featured any kind of like built-in like notification thing that I didn't get sick of within that stream, basically.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like
well, people tend to just kind of put it right in the middle of everything, so it's just so distracting.
I couldn't make it through like 5 minutes of a Brown Man stream.
Yeah.
Like Ray Narvaez Jr. It's like he literally launches the stream and then it spends like the next like 15 minutes going through
Thanks
the
for the
backlog
donation.
of notifications that happen between streams, and I'm like, what the fuck? It's just sounds playing over and over again, and he's not
People
talking
just want
because he's
shout-outs,
just waiting.
dude. They just want shout-outs.
It's so fucking weird. It's why I stopped streaming. Is because people just want me to say their name all the time. I'm like, this is not what I want.
You stopped
I'd
streaming,
like to
Oh, yeah, I haven't
shout
done it
out
in
my
years.
boy Finstar over here. He's been watching the stream the whole time. I'd also like to give a shout out to Moonloon over here. He's been watching the stream for a little bit. I'd also like to give a shout out to Nightbot. Oh, maybe not that guy. I'm also going to give a shout out to.
I'd also like to give a shout out to. That's my name.
Oh man, Joe the Pirate. Thanks for saying that sentence you just said.
Yeah. I'm here to smile
Anyway.
for money.
Yeah.
Give me money. Everybody who's
Yeah.
in my chat, give me money.
It's
That always drives me kind of bananas, where it's just like, do we exist to entertain, or do we just exist to acknowledge your presence?
yeah.
Both.
I guess I can kind of understand the acknowledge your presence thing, because like,
Now, does it ever get difficult for you guys? I mean, I'm at the point where I'm pretty much just starting off with my online presence with things, and I take the time to respond to every single inquiry.
I don't respond to every comment. I stopped that
that
a
becomes
long time
mathematically
ago.
impossible, even at relatively small sizes, like which I would.
It's already
call us.
basically impossible for me.
I will like try
it's
and
not-
respond
it's
to
still within the
specific
cusp of-
series that I want people specifically to be paying attention to. Like to D&D, I will try and respond to everything just because, you know, I really want to encourage the most amount of interaction possible on that. But a lot of other series, like Dead Cells, for example, I'm just like, nope, I'll respond if it's like relevant.
Yeah, I just
Mhm.
there's no motivations behind mine really. I just kind of respond when I'm stricken
If
to
there's something
respond
engaging.
to what the comment is in one way or another. And I'm more and more pushing myself to just never respond in many cases to forms of criticism and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Because you
I've
can't.
just been deleting a lot of criticism.
I don't really delete it. I delete like toxic, shitty, like comments that are not reasonable to say to a person. But
Yeah.
just general criticism, I'd mostly just read and then move on. Because whenever I respond to people, it's no matter what my response is, it's immediately an argument, and they're immediately like it immediately goes bad. Because like you can't talk to
Defensive.
people on the internet. It's so not great.
Yep.
And then it always, and like I don't want to like if they watch me on a regular basis and stuff like that, and then they have a criticism of some kind, and I respond to that, and then they take it as an argument, and they take it the wrong way, and then that's the ongoing thing. Like it's really only it only hurts everyone in many cases for me to bother responding to certain comments. So mostly I answer questions, but only some questions. Definitely trying to never answer questions anymore when people keep asking me what I plan on playing, because they keep asking it,
yeah.
and there's no localized place to answer it. So it'll keep happening anyway.
That's kind of an issue I have to the extreme with streaming, because I will have somebody show up and be like, Wander, are you going to play Injustice 2? And then I'll be like, no. And then they'll show up like 20 minutes later asking the same question. I'm like, oh
Yeah, because
no.
they missed the answer. 'cause
Yeah, they missed the
didn't-
answer.
At that point, wouldn't you want to maybe... It would almost seem like it would be beneficial for Twitch to have some kind of implementation
But, like,
for,
I
you know,
don't-
on the docket tonight, we have this,
It
this,
actually
and this.
would be really nice to have that, and it's very
Yeah.
annoying that they don't.
A built-in calendar would be nice that I actually had like a tool for, because I really don't want to have to,
Yeah.
you know, manage
That
it
way we can just
myself.
complain about them ignoring it.
Yeah.
Because that's why people look at the TV guide. They're like, what's coming on tonight? Do I want to
TV
stick around for
guide.
this episode? Huh?
Twitch guide.
Just thinking like
Pretty
experience,
much.
like let's wait for it to scroll to the channel I want to know the future of.
But yeah, I'd be much more inclined to actually throw up a schedule if I knew people would actually see it. But like I tried it once with like a Google Calendar, and people would still be like, "What are you going to be streaming tonight?" And I'm like, "Check the calendar," and they're like,
Plus, Google
"I didn't feel like looking at it." And I'm just like, "Well,
not a fun application to use."
yeah."
I use Google Calendar.
I use it sort of.
I only use it as a note-taking thing, and that I manually, literally every video I upload, I manually enter into my calendar.
Well, is your calendar?
Because then I can tell when I'm making a mistake. So I have like levels of.
Wait,
I have
your calendar.
overlapping-
Your calendar is a spreadsheet, though, right? Not an actual Google Calendar.
Calendar.google.com.
Oh,
Oh,
I thought yours was a spreadsheet.
So I have multiple.
no, he just uses the
I'm trying to
compact view.
explain that I have multiple levels of like self-checking. Because I have plenty of experiences back in Sad Games days of like videos not going up the same day or accidentally being scheduled for the same time of the same day or like something not quite being checked correctly. So I have two things basically. One, I have a physical grid paper pad that I grabbed where I write down on the x-axis, like along the left side, I have like the names of the games I'm playing right now. And along the top of it, I have the days, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on, just the letter written down and repeating across the page. And I just take a Sharpie and I just color in the square of each for each video I record for each game, so I can tell how my schedule is. Like that's what I refer to when I'm recording, to make sure I get what done that day, what needs to be done, and I can see what my general future looks like. But on the Google Calendar, I add them to the calendar in the moment where I actually upload it to my channel. So it's a second layer. It's a slight redundancy, but it's also a way of checking whether or not there's any sort of conflicts or weird issues.
I used a similar system to that like a couple of years ago. Yeah.
I still use a paper planner, but the sad thing about it is sometimes I just leave it to the wayside and don't write in it for days.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, that's
Yeah, an organizational tool is only as useful as your discipline in using it.
Yeah, and people have told me I can automate the thing where where stuff goes on the calendar. I'm like, that's not the point, though. The point is I'm manually doing it because that's how I check to see if anything's gone wrong.
Well,
is that I'm entering this. I'm like, wait a minute, this is already here. What happened here? And I have to like troubleshoot what happened in my schedule and stuff like that.
My issue with the physical planner is I actually have a whiteboard planner with the days on it that's on the fridge. So I use that for day-to-day tasks and checking things off. The planner is more for like things that are in the future or things that I need to reference back to. So it's sort of like it would be like a more like a long-term planning as opposed to day-to-day. And unfortunately with us, we don't really have anything really planned for the distant future except for a couple of events, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's just day to day then.
You're just like, I'm gonna get organized, then you realize I have nothing to organize.
Yeah, I mean, I have a list of projects I need to work on, but I'm in the process of like,
yeah, we all got that.
finishing one before progressing to the next one, and yeah,
that's overrated.
So that's the problem though. I work on a couple projects simultaneously, so if I get frustrated with one, I can cool off by doing another. But then there's the issue of, you know,
but
you
then
just have to
everything's frustrating, so you don't ever get anything done.
Then you have to buckle up and be like, I need to push through and get this one like actually complete, and then I have things that are 50 to 75% done that I can get done faster, seemingly
and then you get to
faster.
this one phase where everything that you can work on is just at a phase of pure misery, and you're like, well, I guess I'm doing nothing. Or starting a brand new thing, because every option is painful.
Well, there's always
What's
the
your
ugly,
organization
ugly
like?
phase.
Wander, do you use
I have
calendars or what do you use?
Okay, so I have a spreadsheet. I mean, for the most part, I have a pretty good memory of like what episode I need when. Sometimes I'll forget. On kind of regular weeks, I'll have a spreadsheet that I can just keep a hold of and just be like, okay, so I'm gonna need like this episode this day. Weeks like the past 2 weeks, pure chaos. I'm just like, well, if I miss a video, I miss a video. I have more important things to do than, get...
Yeah, and I noticed that you uploaded part 1 of Bokita and then took like 2 weeks off before part 2 or something. Was that recording or rendering?
A bit of both. So part of it is like it wasn't a series that did particularly well, so it wasn't like high priority.
He sometimes lets poor ranking series just sort of fizzle.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I already put out 10 videos a day, and I know, like, to some degree, I am putting out too much to begin with.
Oh, yeah, Old Man's Journey kicked Bokita's ass.
Yeah. Well, we had filmed Old Man's Journey, and in like one sitting, and I already had it edited. Whereas Bokita came out on like a really bad day, and I just did it because I was tired, and I was like, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And it was pretty enough that I wanted to play it, but maybe not for a second session. So sometimes I'll do like episode 1 and then rebrand it as like as more of kind of an impressions video later if I really didn't like it, which is what I did with Starpoint Gemini. Because I knew I don't have the time or the energy to sit down and do a series on it. Where there are other things where like the reception is so overwhelmingly positive that I'm like, well, I guess I'm just doing a second episode and then a full series. Like Star Crawlers and Mid Boss were such like positive reactions that I was just like, well, I guess I know what I'm playing. But
so basically,
for Bokita,
just kind of wing it. It seems
kind of like I'm in that midpoint where like it's important that I get out the video a day, but if I miss one, it's okay, and if like it really drops off, it's probably also okay. There are some times when people are like not okay with it, like Fury. I just stopped putting videos up, and I still get people being like, "Continue Fury," and I'm like, what? Where did you come from, and why?
You rank high on searches pretty often.
I know. And I've actually had to start disabling comments for things like Fury. I probably should do it with Fury, because I'll get people demanding like more episodes than other people that are just like so absolutely like
you're terrible at this.
Why do you suck at video games?
Yeah.
When I go into incognito and search Let's Play Fury on YouTube, I get me, then Gaum, then me again, a few other channels, then you're on the first page.
I actually will admit sometimes if I know I'm playing a game that I don't like and you're also on the front page, like if I only kind of like it and I know you're on the front page too, I will actually stop
you're just
a
like,
Let's Play.
Have it.
I'll like, yeah, Keith can have this because I think he'll
Dear
like
Lord,
it a lot more than I
the
do.
whole front page. This is
For
weird.
Fury?
I think I might have all 10 episodes of my series on the front page.
Nice.
2, 3.
Has there ever... Oh, I suppose we've talked about, like, series that have defined you. At least in the online sense.
Potatoes and Scrap Mechanic.
I freaking...
I'm only missing
Chroma
episodes 4
Squad.
and 6 out of my entire 10-episode series on the front page. And
Whenever anybody
the
asks
first search
me...
result is my playlist.
Whenever anybody asks me about, like, the series that defines me, I just say Chroma Squad. I'm not joking. That game's amazing.
Does that really define you? I thought it'd really be Scrap Mechanic.
I mean, probably, but I
you
would
just mean you liked it.
That's
That's different from what the topic was.
No. It was like such a quintessential Let's Play for me that like, if anybody wants to see a series that is like me, I'd say Chroma Squad would be a very good example.
Mine would probably be Legend of Grimrock 2.
I suppose you
which
could just
happened
have
while
to
you were
do
visiting.
Yes.
the incognito one method where you see where you rank compared to other people.
I've stopped doing that. That is the depths of madness for me.
Oh,
if I do that,
because it's chaos. It's like random number generator response where you don't know what's causing it, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, you have no idea what's going to give you success.
I noticed that there's relevance, and then there's
if we
number
knew,
of
then we'd win at it.
And then,
I mean, to some degree, we are actually doing fairly well at it. I don't know. But so when I had my consultation with the lady from YouTube, she kind of spelled it out. A lot of it has to do with watch time, actually. Like the main reason why they rank people is because people watched those episodes through to the end and then kept watching on YouTube. And so if people only stick around for like a couple minutes of yours, the only reason why like those videos rank well is because they
shows
have
how
so
great
many
binging,
views.
how much of how YouTube is binging now, because like sometimes the top results are just playlists.
Oh yeah,
right, because then people can just jump from one to the next.
Because they want to get people to stay on the website for as long as possible.
Yeah, to get more ads. That's the entire reason why animations just died, was because they switched to this kind of thing.
Yep. And to be fair, actually working out quite well for YouTube. They're making a little bit more money.
Yeah.
To say they're hemorrhaging less money.
It's one of those things where it also incentivizes certain behavior types. Because like Fury is in a regular series for me, in that every video was just a boss fight, and that was because I was intentionally giving myself time because the boss fights took often longer than the video to actually turn out to be to beat the boss, because a lot of them are actually relatively difficult, and I would figure out how to edit that afterwards. So some of these videos are like 14 minutes long, which is super irregular for my channel, but it's one of the most successful playthroughs on my channel. So it's like that kind of stuff incentivizes people to change how they run their channels when they see those kinds of trends, and some people do and some people don't, and that defines how you approach all of YouTube, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, is that why they initially had things where, videos could only be 15 minutes, or people lose interest after 10, or...
Well, people do lose interest after 10. That's always been true. 10 minutes
fits into the breaks that people have in their normal daily lives.
Yeah.
Right. 15, 10, yeah.
People have lunch breaks or recess at school and so on and so forth, or they have bus rides and stuff like that.
Pomodoro, yeah.
Yep.
They're just looking for distractions for a brief little bit, and that affects the analytics of every single video out there.
Yep. And, I mean, it's totally fair. I'm not going to demand people only watch the video when they have time for it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I actually recently, I mean, you guys know this, but we changed D&D around, so now it's one session turns into 2 episodes, and some people were like, I don't like this, and then a lot of other people will be like, thank you.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
we're taking like the 3-hour recording and cutting it into like an hour and 15, an hour and 20 per video and stuff like that.
It also makes it a lot easier to like render.
It's going to make some people happy and some people unhappy. Oh yeah, I'm sure it cuts down your render time by a lot.
One other person said they liked it because they like, even though it's the same amount of content, the idea of getting 2 episodes instead of 1 is like really nice.
It's the little things that get you going, I guess.
I suppose that's one of those, like, the quantity gives like perceived value.
They get the
in a way.
2-time Greg. They get twice as much Greg on a single day.
Yeah, I suppose, was it
different days?
When you guys had to watch a television series as, like, say, a kid growing up, I mean, it was just, there was always that rush for, the Saturday morning cartoons. It was only once a
Saturday
week
morning cartoons
kind of thing.
Great.
I find
they were great. I miss them.
I find that when
Still around, they just suck.
A show is on multiple days of a week, sometimes you just miss an episode and that's it. It's like, oh no, I'm an episode or 2 off.
It's not just that they...
I mean, if that's happening, it's reruns anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
no
true.
No show has ever had like daily videos for its entire season.
It's not that they suck. It's that it's literally the same stuff, like from when we were a kid. It's still like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon.
But now their hair is more spikier.
I would like to see what the new like Fox Kids lineup
they don't
is.
have much.
It's Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon.
Yeah. Those have transcended time.
And a reboot of Ben 10.
Yep.
Probably.
Again.
And like really cheap like 3D cartoons, yeah.
Brought to you by Zac Efron or something.
Like he's producing them, or
Our
what?
references for young people are outdated because they're old now.
Yeah, really. Those kids, they're like they're bop it.
Fidget spinners.
I also noticed that there's a number of these series that have become mini episodes on, say, like websites and whatnot. Like people actually have to visit websites in order to acquire.
Yeah, well, there's really frustrating.
Well,
I hate that.
It is frustrating, but it's interesting watching TV try and like modernize.
Do a bad job.
Yeah, they do a bad job. Like I was going to mention this. I'm really happy that Netflix has been such a changing force, I guess.
I'm glad that Netflix chose never to ask me to download the app so I can follow along with the app on the show. I'm like, fuck off.
Keep up with all the latest Walking Dead craze with the Walking Dead app.
You'll never fully understand Walking Dead unless you download a special app that tells you nothing.
What did they used to call it? DVR or something, where people couldn't be home for an episode, and then they go, okay, I will tell my device to record this episode so that I can watch it later.
Digital video recorder, I think.
And now you can just go back and access it through.
I mean, I think more people. I think tons of people still use DVRs.
Really?
Nowadays, if you even have cable, which I don't know anyone who does, so I have to do research by like finding older people that still have it somewhere. But like, their cable box usually is a DVR nowadays. Like you just tell it what you want to record, and it'll auto record your show. Like when I still lived with at my dad's house, I would just be like, oh yeah, just record Walking Dead, and it would just find Walking Dead and record it on its own.
Yeah, Carl's aunt and uncle actually had one at their place when we were visiting for the holidays, and it was interesting seeing how it somehow had a library of episodes that had aired that day or previous days. And I don't know if it was necessarily anything that they specifically told it to record, or if the channel itself had just kept a directory of what had aired that day and what you could view at any time at your leisure. I mean, I suppose if you're paying for the service, it would make sense. But it's like, I mean, people really do want to watch things at their own convenience now rather than, scheduled times.
It was weird watching how certain dynamics would come out, because they had the DVR functionality, but they also had on-demand functionality, and the two would butt heads a lot. Where you could search, you'd basically go into your guide in your provider, and you would search the name of a show, and you'd basically have two different options, which is like one of them is on demand, which is that you could try to just buy it. You rarely have the ability to get it just for free on demand. But also you could get it. Yeah. You could also just queue it to record. So instead of being like, I'm going to watch it right now on demand, you could be like, oh, I'll just queue it to record, and the exact same show will happen at me, but later. Basically, it was like it was like the equivalent of having like the ability to watch something right now on Netflix or get. Well,
do you want to pay $10 to go to a movie theater? Or do you want to wait for it to come out on DVD and rent it?
But somehow get for free, because they would just come in the mail. Because that's what DVR feels like. It just shows up on your thing like, oh, it's here now. I didn't pay this. I mean, you technically paid for it because you paid for cable, even though they show you ads, because this whole thing is a nightmare. But it was really weird to have two options that are basically like, it was just came down to impulse. Like, do you want to pay for the demand version now or just DVR it? And the same thing will happen, and it will just arrive in your DVR's inbox basically like later today or tomorrow or something when it airs again.
And how does that work with like pre-orders for, say, video games, especially when you're gambling on a product that you don't know will be
video games
good in the end?
I don't know what's the relationship in the conversation. How do we get
the relationship of like getting things early access or before release, and then waiting for like it to come out later when the reviews have come through and the price has drastically dropped, potentially, depending on how well it did.
What's the question?
Just if that like mentality also cues into that, being the first, getting it now before later.
Like people want to be in the zeitgeist, I guess.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know what the question is.
Sorry.
You didn't explain it very well, Shell. But we're also terrible to like speak about with this because we have to be first. So it's
you have to.
Yeah. We're like we don't know.
I mean, I'll be vocal on a regular basis about not supporting pre-order culture because it doesn't make sense anymore. Pre-order culture was a thing you did when there was physical goods that were going to arrive at a specific store, and only so many would be there, and they would run out.
Yeah,
right.
Video games don't do that anymore. First of all, you can buy them all online nowadays, and it's no big deal. Like almost every game can be purchased digitally in infinite quantities, so there's no such thing as scarcity anymore. But at the same time, the actual hardware of discs is so easily produced that they don't really run out of hot new games on release ever anymore.
I noticed that I still have friends, congratulating themselves. Oh, I was finally able to get my hands on a Switch. And I'm like, wait, how many months has it been?
Oh,
yeah, like that's the one
they
rare
just had to
exception.
wrap up production.
Like a hardware launch, that's a thing to pre-order because hardware actually has to be made, and it's expensive to create. And not only is it a matter of like how long and expensive it is to make, but also like the companies will intentionally cap how much they make and then release it and then gauge how it's sold to figure out how much more to make. Because if they don't do that, people
then they have a lot of surplus.
Like people give Nintendo shit a lot for this, for hardware shortages, and I don't know if it's entirely deserved because Nintendo is weird because they're like they're like the only video game company that actually usually operates at a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Sony and Microsoft are mega corporations, and they do this weird multi-arm thing where like it's part of our Microsoft ecosystem. So like they don't care if the Xbox One doesn't make money for 5 years.
They make their money on accessories and video game licensing.
So they sell every console at a loss, and they lose tons of money in their entire department. But like they just hope their whole company just works out eventually. They're all just convoluted things. But Nintendo is just video games basically, and they operate at a profit because they're generally doing this whole thing smartly. And because that's their whole business and everything, it's they're doing the right thing generally with their shortages and stuff like that, so they can do it wave by wave and make sure it works out. Because if you don't do that, you end up like that company, THQ.
Yeah,
THQ created a physical goods device. They made the U-Draw tablet for the Wii, and it sold super well among that specific casual audience that loves controller gimmicks, which is what the Wii was. Then they ported it in massive scale to the Xbox 360 and PS3. Never sold practically any of them. It occupied every shelf like the fucking Tony Hawk Ride controller does. And the entire company went under. A company that's known for so many franchises died because of a peripheral game you never heard of called U-Draw that had Pictionary on it.
Yep.
And then before you know it, they're auctioning off Saints Row and they're auctioning off Darksiders and Red Faction because their entire company's dead. Yeah. Well, yeah, because somebody else owns it.
Darksiders 3!
It's like all those companies are owned by different people now because THQ went under.
It's so interesting hearing about like THQ Nordic as a thing. I'm just like, wait, so like a company willingly named themselves after THQ?
The failed company.
Yeah, I mean,
it's totally a good idea. Nordic was known as this as
they were previously Nordic Games GmbH.
Yeah.
Well, GmbH is a German. It's basically limited in America. You can think about it that way.
Yeah, so they were straight up a company that was just called Nordic Games.
Yeah,
that's been around since 1990.
Oh.
Yeah, the thing is, Nordic had kind of a bad rep for just publishing. They were kind of like a even garbageier version of Focus Home. Like as far as European publishers go, it goes like Ubisoft, Daedalic, Focus Home, and then Nordic kind of.
I look at Focus Home Interactive and I immediately just see work to hire just over and over and over again. A Game of Thrones, Battlefront Gothic, and I'm like, yep, this is just like, here, you'll take our IP and make a game out of it.
It looks like Nordic was like the people that would publish like Arcania and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they would generally
MX
publish
versus ATV.
Farming Simulator.
Oh, and this
Farming
is the police
Simulator.
To bring it back to previous topic.
This is starting to make me wonder how this next Darksiders is going to turn out.
I honestly, it might be okay, it might not.
Did they acquire any of the original team?
They have most of the team. Not all of them. Honestly, most of the upper end of the team went off to make Battle Chasers, which I'm looking forward to.
Huh.
But I mean, the bar is pretty like kind of average height, so it should be okay.
Weren't we going to go back through those games?
Okay. Yeah, probably.
Okay.
So we have time for one question?
Yes.
Maybe we should get through one.
Oh, we need to get through a couple questions.
Talk about a video game. I don't think.
It's fine. Pick a question about a video game, then answer it.
I don't have a question.
You're in control of your own destiny.
I was staring at my topics list.
Okay, fine.
You should have told us the topics list. I asked it before.
Here,
I told you.
No.
We asked him about the bachelor party, and then we started talking about
next week. We are doing
students,
as many questions as we can, and no podcasts.
Clear out the queue. Okay.
Yeah,
it's a huge.
There's so many. We could just do them all in the order. We could just literally read them all in order and just say pass if we don't want to bother with them.
That's fine. We'll do that next week. Okay.
There's a lot
Keith, next week.
Keith, talk about your feelings or whatever the hell it was you wanted to do.
I just wanted to give an update.
That's a good way to introduce someone to a topic, right? Is condescend at them just as like hard as you can.
For the last 90 minutes, I've been trying to break in to give an update on the Neo situation. Like all the way back when he was talking about his roguelike.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about a repetitive game, and I'm like, I literally can't ever... There's so many moments in my audio form where I make
were you talking about?
I make like a sound.
Either mid-boss or I was going to talk about Dead Cells.
Mid-boss a little
You're
bit.
streaming your...
No, okay, go. Keith, you have the floor.
So to recap what happened before, like, Neo is a very Souls-like-ish game made by the Ninja Gaiden developers, and back in the day, me and a long time ago at this point, Andrew, Wander and I played it in the beta in co-op, and it was like a really intuitive thing because you would just join each other in a lobby and matchmaking and be like, let's play that mission next, and you would just play the missions in the game, and it was really straightforward. And so our co-op series died immediately when the real game came out, and they stripped that feature out of it. It still had lobbies, but you could literally only play levels you've beaten before. So like we'd have to meet up every time we beat any level to play again. So like it died immediately because it meant playing levels that we'd already played while being over leveled for them because we already have all the experience, and it was a weird nightmare. So I proceeded to play the entire game over the next few months, and I think I brought up before the criticism of like the fact that like it goes way too heavy into becoming a dungeon crawler in like the worst ways. Because the game is super heavy into loot grinding, and like everything is dropping is just 500 different copies of the same katana but with different numbers on them constantly. So every mission every time you finish a mission, you're comparing 20 items against each other to see which one's the betterest one. And so almost immediately I just stopped caring. I'm like, this one has the highest attack value, I'm going with that one, because all the nuance of how it has a 1% chance of respawning my ninjutsu or something like doesn't matter, because I'll get a new one next mission too, and I'll be able to replace it already.
Diablo.
So any extent to which the special stats matter, who cares? But my biggest gripes with the game were that it has like shitty blobby level design where like there's like 3 levels that are like real proper Souls-like non-linear, open up all these doors from behind and shortcuts and all this stuff going on like you'd expect from like a Metroidvania type thing. But the vast majority of the levels are like just these blobby hallways. Like when you're playing, it starts to feel like you're playing like the Diablo level where you're like, oh, as I run around, this level's going to generate around me, and I don't know what it'll look like, but also I know exactly what it'll look like because it'll all look the same and just be vague directions to go in. And probably the worst offender of the game was actually the fact that once you're like a third of the way into the game, it just stops adding new monsters.
Yeah. It's
So
not even a third.
same-
It's like super early on.
You just start fighting the same monsters for the entire duration of the game, like forever. And it's like, what? Like, this game's so long and so padded, and every side mission has you playing the level you just played, but backwards, where you spawn into the boss chamber and then play back to the place where you spawned in the original story mission. So you're just playing the same levels in reverse as new content with massive air quotes, while fighting the same monsters slightly remixed in different positions again and stuff like that. Like, it gets super mindlessly repetitive. And so I only really kept through with it because at least every level would end with a boss fight, and the boss fights were generally new.
You will also play almost any Souls-like, with the exception of anything by Deck 13.
If nothing else, your audience kind of expects something when you play a certain thing enough. That's why people keep asking me to play the Surge right now. But then the sanctity of the series of the game was at least that every level would end with a new boss fight. That was a new thing that they made from scratch again. That the sanctity of that was ruined when the DLC came out. Also, if you played side missions in that game, they would recycle boss fights. So if you play through the game from front to back, you fight Onryoki like 8 times. So that's pretty rough. But once you get to the DLC, they add 3 new missions to the game, and then like several more side missions that are just those 3 missions repeating over and over again, which is already a little rough for I think it was like a $10-15 DLC or something. They make 2 new enemies. And that not only is that all the new enemies for the entire DLC, not counting bosses, but that they quickly decided that they're playing a DLC for this game. They're not going to want to see old content. So that means they stripped all of the other monsters out of the game. Okay. So for these 3 levels, you're fighting 2 enemies at a vaguely random order, just over and over again. There's a soldier whose head turns into a snake, and then there's a big old guy that's vaguely like the Tengu, basically just a big long reach swift attacker type dude. And those are like the 2 enemies of the DLC, aside from very rarely every now and then a level will have an ice variant of an existing enemy, like an ice cyclops, and that's it. And so like almost it's this game where I just gauntleted through 56 episodes of just doing the same thing over and over again, hoping the next boss fight makes up for it, and then get to a DLC where every level is just me fighting 2 enemies over and over again, which you almost immediately are like, okay, I figured out my strategy for this guy. Oh, it's more of him, huh? Okay. I'll just keep doing this for 4 more hours. But then they broke the deal that we had. We had a deal. These levels would end with boss fights that would make up for the part where I had to put up with all the other games' bullshit, like the cool tiger boss fight or New Way or other things like that. Like there's cool shit in the main game for boss fights. This DLC has one cool boss fight basically. There's one guy who's a centipede man, and that his arm, from like arm to arm, is a centipede basically, and the rest of him is a samurai man. So he's doing these weird, like, he'll switch between doing like samurai style like attack swings and then doing ridiculous like rolls and like at midair like weird swings of his super long centipede arms and crap. Like he has a custom moveset like you'd expect from a boss fight. But then there are 3 more boss fights, one of which is some lackey that I've forgotten the name of already, one of which is kind of a big deal for this kind of fiction. It's Date Masamune, like the guy with the fucking crescent samurai helm that they always like to mythify in all of these video games that go through the era, like Samurai Warriors and whatnot. And then some girl named Maria, that's this game's obligatory, the West is actually corrupting Japan, which is how the main game ended too.
What?
She's a Spanish girl. The main in the main campaign, you're going through Japan, but you're from Ireland and you're defending Japan from a guy that some evil white guy you find in London. So it's like both the hero and the villain are white, but you're going through Japan for it, and it's like slightly troubling in some ways, but I'm not really bothered by it. It's just I'm just mostly just laugh at the idea that like it's like, oh, it's literally like the problem and the solution are both foreign to the country that the game takes place in, and weirdly, and it mostly became funny because the DLC did it again. Because now the villain's someone from Spain. I'm like, why? Why can't Masamune just have agency and just be up to no good for something? Why do they have to be manipulated by some woman from Spain? But the issue here is the 3 boss fights that are humans after Mr. Centipede Man. They're like fighting phantoms in Dark Souls. It's like unforgivable, basically, how little actual content goes into it. Like, it's like fighting a copy of yourself that happens to be wielding that specific weapon, has that specific living weapon super attack and stuff like that. Like, it's the corners are cut so hard that you're like the whole level is all 3 levels are in snow. You fight 2 enemies over and over again, and then when you get to the end of each level, you fight an enemy that's basically like if you got invaded by an NPC in Dark Souls. It's just a copy of your character with its own gear that fights you, and has like a living weapon mode, which is what you have also. Is just a thing where you activate your elemental weapon and go haywire for a bit. So like their only special variant is that those enemies have a living weapon you don't have, so they have moves you don't quite have yet, and that's it. And like that's the climactic bosses of this DLC are like the equivalent of like, yeah, if you fought like Siegmeyer or something. And that's like it's going so downhill. It's so rough to see, because we keep playing different types of Souls-likes over time, and you always hear me praise the Dark Souls games for how much it's always new content. Like even when we played Dark Souls 3, you can't really say that they recycle content. You can only say they recycle ideas. Because like we talked about how it feels like a remix of the previous like several games, and that's true. But they don't use the previous games in the game. Like they don't actually literally use that. They make new content, and it's that's why those games always feel super well paced, because you're playing new bosses and new enemies, and the enemies will be used exactly as much as they need to be, and then they'll move on, and they won't outwear their welcome and crap like that. You won't fight 100 of the same dude. But Neo turns out to learn almost no lessons from Dark Souls, despite how much it just lifts mechanics. Because you just fight 100 of the same dude. Like, that's just a thing that happens in the game. And try to imagine, like, loot grinding in a Dark Souls game, like, what that experience is like. Because, like, whenever you loot...
I've been doing that in the Surge. It's not as bad as Neo, though.
Because
Alright,
even the Surge, haven't you said, like, there's parts where you can kind of button mash and you don't have to think?
Oh yeah, it is super like brainless, and also you don't have to grind RNG wise. It's mostly just like, I need to cut off 8 more arms to finish off this set.
Ew.
The issue I've run into is that Neo, when you're expected to grind to catch up in level or get your super weapons and stuff like that, like it's like grinding in Bloodborne. Like, you're fighting things that super fight back and are ready to cause a problem. It's like you can't check out at all. So it's like grinding's exhausting. Because it's not like Dark Souls or it's not like Diablo where you're like, I'm grinding, I'm clicking on them, I'm just gonna clear this level a few times, like as you just click your way through it. Like, grinding in a game that's actually demanding, like a Ninja Gaiden game, it just becomes exhausting. But not fun. Like, you're engaged in that you have to keep paying attention the whole time, but you're just doing the same thing over and over again in the same level, repeating to grind. So you're just being engaged while nothing interesting happens, which means you're just like tired. Like, it's just a game that makes you tired because it asks too much attention for how little it's willing to give you. It's rough. I'm baffled by how many, like, this game got 10s from people. It's really interesting watching how high the praise for this game was.
People just wanted it to be good, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. And then there's all because it sounds amazing. It's a samurai Souls-like from the Ninja Gaiden developers, and it's got pretty cutscenes and like flashy gameplay, and it's responsive. The gameplay is the basic gameplay is good, but it doesn't have content. And I always wonder if the people that played it didn't beat it when they reviewed it, and they just reviewed like the early impression of it. Like, when you hear about how like Sega would make Total War games that are way better at the beginning than at the end, because and then people play the beginning and give it a good review. Or like that happened with SimCity. Polygon gave SimCity 2013 a very high score. Then they played further into the game. Were like, oh my god, this is a piece of shit. And they like they updated their score like 4 times, lowering it more and more as they played further into the game. And
that's hilarious.
I would say kind of unprofessional to be publishing your review of a game you didn't really play that much of, but whatever. But like, I get that feeling sometimes from Neo because I'm like, how is there?
Yeah,
there's two. It was so positive.
So that's kind
like
of what
receiving a defective product in the mail and being like, wow, this toaster is awesome, and you only had it for a day, and then like
it burns your apartment down and you're like, ah. That actually happened with Rime this past week, which is this like beautiful kind of journey-like game. PS4 version has like lag, but like whatever, it's an indie game. PC version is irredeemable, so all the reviews are like 9s and 8.5s, and just the PC version deserves nothing higher than a 3.
Oh,
but
boy.
did it get that?
Yeah. Well, the Steam reviews are atrocious for it, but the actual like reviews, since they all got PS4 copies, they're like, this is a wonderful game, and it's like really artsy.
Yeah, I think
if you check Metacritic, it's definitely lower on PC.
Oh yeah, I loved using Metacritic back in the day because they actually would rate it by system. And I remember when I was younger, I thought that games were indistinguishable one system to another. But
no.
Back when they were releasing, what was it? I remember I sadly picked up Star Wars Unleashed, The Force Unleashed. For the Wii. I picked it up for the Wii because...
ports to the Wii were particularly horrible.
It was a completely different game. Like, the PlayStation and the Xbox ones looked very similar, with only minor graphical differences, I think. But they actually had to create, like, a separate game.
Well, they have to scale it down because the Wii was so underpowered compared to other consoles at the time.
But the consolation was you got a separate PvP Saber Duels game mode in the Wii that the other games didn't have.
Weirdly enough,
that's cool.
I think right now might be the peak out of all of history of games of port similarity.
Yeah,
because the more you go back,
well, I think that consoles just use PC hardware at this point.
The more you go back, the more disparate ports get, and how bizarre things get, and to the point where if you go far enough back, ports of games were just new games.
They were different.
They were
games.
just different games, like Aladdin. It would just be called the same thing on like 4 consoles, and it would not at all be the same game on each console with different levels and different sprites and everything. Like
Pac-Man ports are fascinating to look at.
You want to see something really weird? Look at the game Star Wars Jedi Power Battles, but look at it on PlayStation 1 and then on Dreamcast.
Well, that used a lot of mocap, didn't it?
No,
or not mocap, but like motion controls. Right?
No, Jedi Power Battles is just a top-down beat-em-up game. It's like Fighting Force.
I'm thinking of something completely different then.
Like Jedi Power Battles.
Well, we're going
PS1
over 2 hours at this point,
Dreamcast
so maybe I'm going to try and wrangle us
Kibush.
in again here.
Yeah.
Do we have a
He's
poop
Kibush.
story, or are we just gonna do a
Poop
hard
story. Didn't
countdown?
we start with poop stories this time?
No.
Not exactly poop story, but Shell was having like digestive systems issues the other day.
Hey!
And
Just gonna volunteer
so
that
I was
about her,
streaming
huh?
and she's like dancing in front of me with like notes written down, being like, "I have to poop," and I'm like, "Why are you telling me this?"
Well, did she?
Presumably.
Several
Okay.
times.
Let's just start
okay.
with a happy ending. Running on a
Well,
good note.
I mean, she pooped. That's happy.
Hey!
Not pooping. That's the unhappy part.
Poop.
So is that why your neighbors are moving out, or
No one's moving out.
Well, the lady with the pug, I haven't seen her again, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Wait, there was a lady with a pug?
Wasn't it a pug or was it a bull? I don't know. There were people with dogs that were
Well, they were the ones pooping on the lawn, and they may have been evicted because our apartment complex is like, yeah, if anyone catches you letting your dog defecate on our lawns, they didn't use that language, obviously.
We're done
We're
giving
going-
strikes for this. You're just out.
All
Really?
right.
Because I thought they were going to give people fines and then
No.
no more
evict
talking?
them.
No more. We're done.
No more.
We're done for the day.
We're done.
Okay.
Podcast over.
Oh,
Thanks for watching,
escape.
everybody.
No. Send questions. Watch it on SoundCloud. Watch it on iTunes.
It's on
apparently.
iTunes. There's links in places.
Yeah.
I can't just say the iTunes link. It doesn't work that way.
It's
awful.
itunes.com/IJKP17 capital P colon 886.
The fuck is happening? What have we
I don't know.
become?
Oh no.
Yes.
He's already playing.
Are we even
what
gonna
was
make it to 30 episodes, or
Astoria?
are we just gonna be like puddles?
Hey.